Good Friday of the Lord's Passion, Cycle C. The community's action is solidarity and association Jesus Solidarity. We're inviting you to listen to the Living Gospel for this Holy Friday. Let us then meditate on the Gospel according to John, chapter 18, verses 1 to 19 and 42, with commentary from Patrick Brady in the voice of Brother Carl Balaan and Rosa Ocampo.
Dear friends, today is Good Friday, and we read the Passion according to St. John. It is a passion different from those of the three other evangelists. I'm going to change the way I comment. As the Passion is long, I will take several excerpts and I will comment after reading each passage. I begin with an overview of this account of the Passion according to St. John. Overview. The story of the Passion of Matthew and Mark is dramatic and terrible, while that of Luke is a love drama. John's Passion is different. It is a story of lordship and majesty. Jesus goes to death as Lord and owner of situations. These and other differences are due to the fact that each author wishes to highlight different aspects. John's Passion is the story of victory, the story of the glorification of Jesus. It already contains the glory of his resurrection. The cross and resurrection are closely linked in unity. As an account of a victory, John suppresses the episode of Gethsemane, which is humiliating, although he includes a moment of crisis for Jesus before his death in chapter 12. Among the humiliation that Jesus suffered, John recounts only a few. Peter's denials are softened. When referring to the crucifixion, John does not speak of criminals. He limits himself to saying that two others were crucified with Jesus, one on each side. Of the words of Jesus on the cross, John does not bring up the harshest, which is the only one inserted by Matthew and Mark, and none in the three words that Luke mentioned. John puts three words which are exclusive to him. None of them are painful. They express the passage from the Old to the New Testament, his apostolic passion, and the final triumph that we have referred to before.
Verses 1 to 11, the arrest of Jesus. Jesus went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to where there was a garden, into which he and his disciples entered. Judas, his betrayer, also knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. Judas got a band of soldiers and guards from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and went there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Jesus, knowing everything that was going to happen to him, went out and said to them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus the Nazarene." He said to them, "I am." Judas, his betrayer, was also with them. When he said to them, "I am," they turned away and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, "Whom are you looking for?" They said, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "Who told you that I am? So if you are looking for me, let this man go." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, and cut off his right ear. Jesus said to Peter, Put your sword into the scabbard. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father gave me?
Father Paci's comment. The lordship and majesty of John's passion can be seen beginning in the arrest of Jesus. The two words, I am, recall those of Yahweh to Moses and are so imposing for the Jewish people that they immediately fall to the ground. It is a plastic way of expressing the lordship of Jesus when they arrest him. Then he continues to organize the arrest. He asks them or commands them to let the apostles go. He rebukes Peter for having injured a servant of the high priest and declares that his arrest and crucifixion is the cup that the Father has given him and that he is going to drink it. All of this is unbecoming of a detainee whom they want to take to his death.
Verses 19 to 23, Jesus before Annas. The high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I have spoken publicly to the world. I have always taught in a synagogue or in the temple area where all the Jews gather, and in secret I have said nothing. Why ask me? Ask those who have heard what I have said to them. They know what I said. When he had said this, one of the temple guards standing there struck Jesus and said, Is this the way you answer the high priest? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?
The answer he gives to the high priest is unbecoming of a prisoner. He talks from him, H in a capital letter, to him, H in a small letter. Jesus even allows himself to ask the high priest why the latter is asking him when he, Jesus, has spoken publicly. And Jesus says, which is the last straw, to instead ask those who have listened to him. It is a very daring response and seemingly disrespectful. The security guard's slap seems quite understandable to us, even though it shouldn't be. But Jesus' answer surprises us again. He continues to act as owner and Lord, even before the high priest and his council.
Chapter 18, verses 33 to chapter 19, verse 11. Jesus before Pilate. Pilate went back into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, Do you say this on your own, or have others told you about me? Pilate answered, I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done? Jesus replied, My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here. Pilate said to him, Then you are a king? Jesus answered, You say I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth, listen to my voice. To him, What is truth? When he had said this, he again went out to the Jews and said to them, I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I release one prisoner to you at Passover. Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? They cried out again, Not this one, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a revolutionary.
I summarize the interval between these verses. Meanwhile, Pilate had Jesus flogged. The Roman soldiers put the crown of thorns and a purple mantle on him, and they mock him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Then Pilate presented him again to the Jewish leaders, saying, "Here is the man." The chief priests and their guards shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" I continue with the Gospel passage in chapter 19.
The Jews answered, "We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God." Now, when Pilate heard this statement, he became even more afraid, and went back into the praetorium and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" Jesus did not answer him. Pilate said to him, "Do you not speak to me? Do you not know that I have power to release you, and I have power to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it had not been given to you from above. For this reason, the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin."
Jesus' dialogue with Pilate shows us again his dominion and lordship. "You have no power over me," Jesus tells Pilate. It could be from anyone except an inmate, and it unsettles Pilate. To the governor's first question, Jesus replies boldly, "Are you saying that on your own? Or is it that others have told you about me?" No prisoners give such an answer, and logically, Pilate is upset. When Pilate asks him another question, he answers the first and dislodges Pilate. And when Pilate asks him if he is a king, Jesus answers that he is, but he connects his kingship with the truth. It's making Pilate dizzy. So he asks Jesus what the truth is, and he goes out without waiting for an answer to speak to the Jews. He wants to save Jesus, but he is a coward. Later, Pilate calls Jesus again and asks about his origin. Jesus is silent, upsetting Pilate, who threatens him with possible condemnation. But then Jesus does not shut up, and as Pilate has emphasized his authority, Jesus replies that his authority does not come from being who he is, but rather from above. "Otherwise, you wouldn't have any power," he tells Pilate. What is there to say about all this? The actuations of Jesus, a prisoner, is most improper, completely unthinkable. But it is an important literary resource of the evangelist to declare something that it is not in the synoptics, namely, that Jesus is owner and Lord in all the passion, that he acts with sovereign freedom above his own sufferings, his enemies, and Pilate, and that, therefore, his passion and crucifixion are glorious and are showing his resurrection in advance. Of course, this literary framework is the work of the evangelist. The facts are still as painful as in the synoptics. John, however, does not insist on them, but on the freedom and sovereignty of Jesus. His story of the Passion is one of an inexplicable greatness. He invites us to admire and love Jesus without telling us so. It is a passion of victory.
The death sentence. Consequently, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release him, you are not a friend of Caesar. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." They cried out, "Take him away! Take him away! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." Then he handed him over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, in Hebrew, Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him two others, one on either side, with Jesus in the middle. Pilate also had an inscription written and put on the cross. It read, "Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews." Now many of the Jews read this inscription because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. So the chief priest of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but that he said, 'I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written."
Of these verses, I will only highlight a few points. One of them is that the Jewish leaders play on the fear of Rome, which any governor of the conquered lands used to do, and Pilate is afraid. A phrase that produces a deep sadness because it is put into the Jewish mouths is this: "We have no king but Caesar." It is incredible in a people that felt to be the people of God and not that of any other sovereign. Anyway, luckily, only the leaders said it. The Jewish people never said it. And we also do not know if it is only the work of the evangelist. Note also that Pilate is now more assertive than in the dialogues with the Jewish leaders. They ask him not to put the sign Jesus, King of the Jews, but to write, "This man said, 'I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate does not agree and responds, "What is written is written."
Verses 25 to 30 of chapter 19. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. After this, aware that everything was now finished, in order that the scripture might be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I thirst." There was a vessel filled with the common wine. So they put a sponge soaked in wine on a sprig of hyssop and put it up to his mouth. When Jesus had taken the wine, he said, "It is finished." And bowing his head, he handed over the Spirit.
In these verses, we have the three phrases of Jesus in the Gospel of John. Let's say first that the union of the 7 words of Jesus is not theologically acceptable. Why? Because each evangelist, even telling similar things, has his own theology, that is, his own vision of the actions and sayings of Jesus, as we have seen in the account of John's Passion. The phrase of Mark and Matthew, "Why have you forsaken me?" does not fit in John in any way. The ones that Luke brings correspond to his vision of mercy and forgiveness, which crosses his entire gospel and does not appear in John. The first words of the crucified in John are those referring to his mother and the beloved disciple. They are usually interpreted in the sense of declaring Mary, mother of Christians. Another interpretation consists of seeing in Mary the Old Testament and in John the New. Jesus, dying, tells the Jews to take care of the new community that has been born from them, and to Christians, let them not forget their roots, which are in Judaism. After centuries of fighting, the relationship is now much better, except perhaps with the fundamentalist Jews. The second sentence, with thirst and vinegar, are mentioned to make it clear that everything has gone according to plan. The third sentence, everything has been fulfilled, manifests 2 points. First, that no one takes Jesus' life, but he gives it willingly. Second, it is a cry of triumph from someone who has carried out the mission entrusted to him. It is a phrase to meditate on. Concluding the comment, let us emphasize again that Jesus is the Lord of different situations and that he acts with enormous majesty. John has wanted to show us the other side of the Passion, which is seen from the resurrection of Jesus and faith. And he has put before us the victory of Jesus against fear, against defeat, against death, and against the dominant powers in the world, civil and religious. It is a huge, glorious protest against the arbitrariness of power, the injustice towards the poor and weak people, and the destruction of innocent people. A protest raised high as a great victory for all the defeated people of the world. A deep meditation will make us better understand the dark clarity of the victorious passion of Jesus, according to St. John.
Prayer. It is hard for me. It is hard for me. It is hard for me. It is hard for me to recognize it, that reality so black I cannot understand it. I cannot climb that bare ridge. I can never get up. Hanging from an infamous wood, my soul looks at it and freezes. My eyes go blind. My lips lock. My whole being rebels. And I scream with all my power. Such horrendous barbarism is not possible. That vileness is not possible. Since I cannot understand it, my eyes get lost looking at the land. Hands, I don't know where to put them. I lower my head to the ground, and while my mind clings to know, my heart adores and surrenders.